Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching All Things Bike. And today we are speaking with the board of the New England Velodrome and Sports Complex. And we are speaking with Alan Ferry, Ed Cross, and Pam Fernandez. Thanks, you guys, for coming down on the show.
Thanks for inviting us.
I got all your names right?
Yes.
You did.
All right. You're the treasurer, right, Ed?
Correct.
And Pam, you're the president.
Currently, yes.
And Alan, you're new to the board.
I am.
What brought you in? Just tell us a bit how you got involved.
Cycling, a passion for it.
What else?
You know, I got into cycling through the Velodrome down in Pennsylvania.
Right on.
Back in the late 80s.
Trexeltown.
Yep.
Wow.
Moved to New England for grad school in 2002. Pulled me away from the Velodrome. For the last 16 years, I've been clamoring to have one up here, and
I know.
Now I'm ready to really put forth an effort to make it happen.
That's right. Well, you're joining the right organization, I think. You guys are not new to the show. You have, in fact, been here before. And that was about a year ago, and
Correct.
I'm sure a lot has happened since then. So give us an update, but also somewhere in there, give us a quick overview of the organization. And anyone, you can take the question individually or as a group, however.
Okay. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose goal it is to bring track racing back to New England in a big way, and to also get a velodrome facility here in New England. As you and some of your viewers probably know, track racing used to be much more prevalent in New England than it is today. So we want to bring it all back.
All right. And Ed, I mean, what's happened since you were here last? How's it been going?
Again, I think the most significant thing now is we're taking on some new board members. Again, Alan and also Josette Crystal, who couldn't be here today, but
Next time.
right. And but the more board members we get here, we gain more talent and more energy, and we get to spend more time on this. So it ends up snowballing.
Yeah.
You get the momentum going, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear that there's momentum and excitement, and there's something that you want to announce or reveal today. So let's just get right to it.
Do I get to do that?
You
get to
do.
go, Alan.
Well,
Alan spearheaded this. So.
All right.
we have a new logo for the organization, which we think is
There you go.
a good representation of what we are and what we want to become, which is the premier track racing facility in the United States, based in New England.
That's great. I mean, well, how are we going to get there? I mean, it's a long journey. People have been talking about this for a long time, and I know everyone wants one, but it's just so hard to pull it off. I mean, how's it going? Give us the
Well, I
latest.
know that we've come a long way from when we started, and we're actually looking forward to what we can do. And we're now a board of 5. There's another board member who's relatively new. His name is Graham Ray. So we have Ed and I are 2 of the founding members, and we have 3 new board members, and we hope to add some more over the next year or 2, as Ed mentioned, because the more people we have, the more talent we have, the more time we have. And we'll be able to get more done faster. I know we want to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. Like a fundraising or campaign.
We do intend to initiate a good fundraising campaign that's going to have many facets and ways that people can get involved and make donations. As I said, we're going to grow the board. And we have some social media platforms that we really are looking forward to getting active, and so we can engage communities more with more platforms and ways
Right.
to reach out.
And what do they say? I know that you post a lot on your Facebook page. Give us ideas, to the people who are following your page. What kind of feedback are you getting from the followers as well as the towns that you've met with so far?
Well, the followers only engage with us when we go out and ask them questions. And I know one of our most popular posts in the last year was when we asked people what would bring them to a velodrome, what would they need to make it a place that they would go to more than once a week. And we got lots of comments like proximity, bike rentals, things like that, weekend racing, training opportunities, and those are all things that we've taken in. So we know that when we reach out to our Facebook community that they will respond. We also are going to be launching, in addition to Facebook, we're going to launch some other social platforms, which Alan actually has talked about. Alan, what were those other?
Instagram.
That's a highly effective platform. Tell us more.
I mean, it's really just about connecting with the audience, right?
Right.
Giving them some content that, for the time being, is really just showing them that we're making progress. There are people behind this project.
Yeah.
We're moving forward with it. Ultimately, we're going to use it to raise money, to get ideas, to make connections, to get people to the facility.
Yeah. No, that's great. But you've a big event in the past year has been the tour that you went on, Ed, with Graham, reviewing and looking at all the velodromes in the Midwest and Northeast. Give us a sense about that. I want to talk about that for a while and see what you learned.
We visited a total of 5 velodromes.
Right.
We started out. We knew Cleveland was in existence. They started out as an outdoor velodrome. Again, they aspire to have an indoor at some point. They've been operating since, I believe it's 2012. So we started there. We also went out to Detroit. Dale Hughes, who has designed many velodromes, many tracks, and is a former track racer himself. It's in his blood.
Yeah.
He just opened up just about a year ago in Detroit, an indoor velodrome. It's a shorter version of what we would like to build, but again, we're not going to commit to any size just yet.
Right.
But it's a shorter version. It's in Detroit. He's got 3 major sponsors. He's looking for more. And again, being indoors means you have all year
essential.
long. That makes a big difference, right?
That's the Lexus
Correct.
Velodrome.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he suggested we also check out a longer version of that same track that he does. By the way, the track that's in there is the same design they had in Cleveland.
Right.
And he made a stretch version of that he put up in Bloomer Park, which is further north. It's kind of out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
We just visited up there. We didn't have anybody to talk to, but we stopped up there to see it. It's an outdoor in a municipal park.
Right.
Then we went over to London, Ontario. Where they've been.
Before we get to Canada, I want to ask.
Oh, okay.
So, because the first part was the U.S. and you saw a 200 meter and 166 meter. I'm sort of curious how the places that you saw in the U.S. Compared to Trexeltown, which is
A lot smaller.
Smaller.
Right, yeah, so Trexeltown is a 333 meter
Is that right?
banked oval.
But it has this following. I mean, it's outdoors. Is it concrete? I don't know.
It is.
It's concrete. It's outdoors, concrete in Pennsylvania, and yet people still gravitate to Trexeltown, and it always makes me think that if Trexeltown can survive as a velodrome, a place that's indoors and shorter, could do as well. So I mean, give us a perspective of Trexeltown, so we have something to compare the places that Ed saw.
Well, I got into cycling because of Trexeltown. I was in high school.
Right.
My homeroom teacher held up a brochure and said, "Is anybody interested in a bicycle racing league?"
Yeah.
And I signed up, and I signed up for the Burger King Bicycle Racing League, and a couple years later, I was racing all over the country.
Right.
And it's racing from March through September, and then you've got your, a couple special event races in October, but it's part of the community down there. There's a huge cycling population down there. And it's also in close proximity to Philadelphia and New York City.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of, if you think about what are the ingredients that go into a recipe for a successful velodrome, we have a lot of those up here in New England.
Right.
What makes a velodrome potentially not successful? Bad weather.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of that up here, more so than in Trexeltown, Pennsylvania, which is why we need to start thinking longer term about a covered or an enclosed facility instead of just a hole in the ground with some concrete poured into it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we if you think it's cold in New England, you can go to Canada, and it's significantly colder.
And Ed did that.
Oh,
And,
yes, we
and you
did.
guys all did
Only in
that.
summer.
Yeah, that's right. You went in summer, but I mean, that's again, if they can do it in Canada, we should be able to do it in New England. So I'm interested in hearing about your observations at Mattamy, which is the gold standard for
Yes.
the 21st century velodrome. So tell us a little bit about that facility and what you learned.
Okay, Mattamy, they built that in 2015 for the Pan Am Games.
Right.
So it's a municipally owned building. The town of Milton owns the building now. They run it, and they're thriving up there
Yeah, I
because
mean,
it is a multi-use facility.
Yeah, well, let's stop there. I mean, people always say, it's different in Canada. It works in Canada, doesn't work in the U.S. I mean, you hear that about everything. But did you get the sense that the fact that it was owned by the town or supported by the town had something to do with its success?
But because they have they certainly have the stability of having a municipal government there to run it. But even that aside, if you look at it stands on its own financially.
So
we got to talk with them numbers. I'm not going to share the numbers, of course, but it stands on its own, and that's because it is a multi-use. They have a running and walking track along the perimeter inside, perimeter of the track. They've got on the infield, they've got hardwood, so they have as much as 3 basketball courts. They reconfigure it for different sports, and they have it all booked up. It's amazing. They just they are about maybe 20 minutes from Toronto proper, so they are the suburbs of Toronto. But again, the demographics there are not really that much different than what you find here in New England and around the Boston area and all around as it spreads out. So anywhere you get that kind of population density, it could work.
It helps,
So,
but they've been creative with some of the other things like booking or renting office space and having graduation events and whatnot.
Right.
Have you ever been to Mattamy or did you do? Yeah, exactly.
He's going to.
I want to go too. What about? But in your sort of research, process with all of this, what strikes you as unique about the Mattamy facility?
The model that they've taken there is, it started off as a gift, so to speak, right? So they got a really beneficial
the Pan American
jumpstart,
Games,
right?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily need that to
No.
make it happen in New England.
Yeah.
We can raise the money. And then I think learning from what they've done and figuring out, do we need other sports to make this self-sustaining? Could it be self-sustaining with just cycling and perhaps a few other events?
Yeah.
All of those things are questions that we're asking ourselves and other people are asking us, and we're going to come up with answers to those over the next year or two before we start spending money for our facility.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a rush. So but it would be, you want to do the homework.
Depends who you talk to.
Yeah. Well, I know. Yeah, speak for yourself, Fred. But I think I'm also curious to hear about some of the stories that we're told about getting the thing built, right? I mean, because it wasn't just like, oh, okay, we'll build it. There was a lot of politics and I'm sure construction problems and all that. Give us a short overview.
Initially, the way our project got started was back when, of course, Boston was going to try to vie for the Olympics for 2024. Pam gave me a call. She says they're going to have to build a velodrome and we can't let them tear it down. So that got our interest going, and so we organized. We got people from all around cyclists from all around New England. Shops. We got racers. We got recreation riders. People involved in government. We got them all together. We had several meetings, and we said, look, this is a project we want to go forth. Regardless of whether Boston happens or not, we're going to get a velodrome one way or another. It'd be easier if we got a hand-me-down from the Olympics, but we're going to build a velodrome. That's the point.
Yeah.
And so that was the history of that.
Yeah.
But now we now have additional momentum, I think, right now in doing this. We've learned a lot in the last several years about, for instance, how other velodromes are operating. We actually went out and saw them. That was part of what Graham and I did.
Yeah, they seem to be 501c,
Right.
and some of them are being creative with revenue generation.
Yeah, they all have their models about involving events such as concerts or whatever, or conventions. Even Mattamy, they use that as convention space several times a year as well, and that goes a long way to paying off
Yeah.
the yearly bills.
Yeah.
And, we feel that stuff like this is going to work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is that in Detroit, they're doing it. They have live streaming apparently of the events,
Right.
and then they have something called suites in the center. Explain that. I mean, that seemed
Okay,
like a
so
novelty.
what they've done is again, Dale Hughes, he started the foundation and he's been running the Velodrome.
Yeah.
He takes a little bit of different tact in that he tries to sell it from the entertainment standpoint.
Okay.
And which in itself makes a lot of sense because he did manage to get, again, it was the PBS stations, TV stations out around the Midwest. He's got contracts with them to air what he has is a monthly pro race in there.
Yeah.
So on one weekend a month, he has pros come in, they tape it, and they live stream it, and they also play it back later. On the air.
Yeah.
The suites in the middle, that's essentially on the infield. They got them sectioned off, and each one has a large screen TV. So yes, they can see the whole track around them, but they can also see the
Right, the
details
camera
right
angle.
in
Yeah,
front of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And they sell those in blocks of however much money per suite,
Yeah.
and that's additional income there.
Yeah.
He says they get door tickets for just for the audience.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working. He says time will tell because we saw him in the summer. He has been only open since
Oh,
January.
right.
We're going to follow up with him and see is this indeed working as he expected.
No, that's great. Well, Pam, when Ed and Graham debriefed you on this trip, what stuck in your mind as very promising or exciting?
I think that the tracks all had different formulas, as Ed said. They were different sizes. They had a variety of populations that they were able to bring in depending on their structure. I know up at Mattamy, they've got as many members who walk as who cycle.
Right.
So that for them is a really good kind of constant revenue stream. And just getting back to Trexlertown for a minute, when I used to race down there, because I used to race tandems, it was a time when Pat McDonough was managing the track. And he always told us, this is about entertainment. It's about racing, but it's about entertainment. You are the entertainment. And, there was a reason that there were 1,000 people in the stands every
Yeah.
Friday night.
Support your friends.
And people that don't know, like they're not bike racers themselves, but they would see you. One time we went down there and we had a road bike on top of the car, in the car, and I remember them saying, that's the wrong kind of bike for
Right.
here. Like they're so knowledgeable. And I
Yeah.
think there's a real meshing of providing entertainment to the people as spectators who come to watch, who are supporting the velodrome, and the bike racers themselves who want the excitement of having 1,000 people in the stands because
Yeah.
it is the coolest racing.
It's much more fun than
It's
a
way more
5-hour
fun.
road race.
Yeah, so I think there is a bit of an entertainment quality. And the other thing that we've started doing this year is we're beginning to start looking at properties
Right.
that could potentially work. So we're very new doing that, but that's something that we hadn't been doing last year that we're looking forward to doing more of this year.
Explain a little more. So you mean like a park or buildings
Alan,
or
I'm going
hockey
to hand that
rinks?
one over to
Right.
you.
What do you think?
Piece of land, period.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could take, who owns it remains to be seen.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, on the drive up here from Boston, we were on the phone with a realtor
Great.
with, a 44-acre piece of land.
Yeah.
So we could fit a velodrome in a parking lot on 6 or 7 acres.
Right.
The vision for the organization is trending towards a 40-plus acre facility so that we can have a paved loop, ideally a 3.1-mile loop so that we can have running races on it, 5K running races.
Right.
We can have circuit races like they have at the fitness park down in Trexlertown. Of course, just general recreation, families, inline skating, things like that.
Right. So I mean, when you say 3.1 miles, does that mean it's a 250-meter track, or are you talking about a loop
No, I'm
that
talking
goes around
about
the
like
outside?
in addition to the
Yeah,
velodrome.
yeah, okay,
yeah, because
right.
we only need we need less than 10 acres
Right,
for the
right.
actual velodrome and parking lot.
Right, right.
But if we also want to
I
have
see, yes,
a
right.
park associated with this,
Yeah.
we need probably another at
Yeah,
least
right.
25 acres.
And a 3.1 mile is a 5K.
Yeah, there
right?
you go.
So then
Right.
you would have a 5K loop that people can either train on or
Right.
walk or whatever, or you can run races.
And then
on.
you
Or
can
have a 20-lap bike race that finishes
Yeah.
in the velodrome like Paris-Roubaix.
There you go. Or yeah, or it starts in Maine and finishes in the
Even better,
velodrome.
even better, yeah.
Hopefully the course won't be as rough as Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah.
Well, you can ride some roads in New England. You'll find something comparable, I think.
And you know, if we were gifted to locate a site that would allow us to, wouldn't it be nice to have some outdoor, like a BMX track? I mean,
Sure, yeah.
we're dreamers,
Yeah.
we're
No, but-
realists, but we're dreamers.
But,
so
but the fact is that all the other facilities that are up and running already have these kinds of additions to the.
Some of them do.
some
Well,
of them
that's
do,
right.
yeah.
Some of
do,
them,
yeah. So.
Right. But so you've seen what's out there, and I guess if you're thinking of a piece of land, it's a blank slate, so you can
Right.
really create what you want. Now,
For instance, in Cleveland, they just set up on an empty parking lot. They put the track there.
Yeah.
That's all they do in there is just the track racing. They don't have any other
right,
general
exactly.
programs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, and it seems to work there.
Right.
But you made an interesting observation in your review of the tour that there are all these great programs at Lexus and Cleveland, the youth programs, the amateur, the pro races.
Right.
All that stuff is in place. It doesn't cost that much, but there still seems to be a sort of a disconnect, or the people, people, you would think there'd be more interest or more participation. I'm always wondering what it's going to take to get the public interested in track cycling again. And has anyone asked you that when you go to a town and ask them and talk about this stuff? Do they bring that point up or?
Right. But the point is, in those areas, they don't have the population density of bike races that we do here in New England in general. Okay.
Right.
We feel that this is going to be something where not only bike racers are going to come in. We already have an established group of people that want to use it, but it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
So that kind of snowballs. You get more rider interest that way.
Yeah.
Just the publicity of it. People say, maybe I'll try that. You may try it for a few years and go away, but I think you're going to get a constant turnover. That's what I foresee on that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
again, that is part of all of those velodromes that we visited. It's always a youth program.
Yeah.
That's the basis of all of them, and they work on up there.
It was for Allen too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
There you go.
Yeah, and don't forget that in New England, we have high school cycling teams, we have
Yeah, right.
college cycling teams.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of schools, so
Yeah.
we can do outreach to the schools. I know in Trexler Town they have a very popular program that a good friend of mine used to run. It's the Pee Wee Peddlers, and so he would get children 4 or 5 years old and teach them to ride bikes safely.
Right.
And safety in children learning to ride bikes is something that not every neighborhood, not every parent is equipped to do.
Yeah.
But that's something that we could provide. And, there are Olympic champions who started in the Pee Wee Peddlers program in Trexler Town.
Yep.
So we would also have a vibrant, youth program. And I see that being a great feeder program,
Yeah, I mean-
especially in the summer.
And especially for USA Cycling, I couldn't help notice at the
Yeah.
World Championships that in the top 3 it was a Spaniard, and then second was Frenchman, and the third guy was a Canadian. And I'm not sure if it's true, but it may be. But if there's a velodrome around, you get kids involved in cycling earlier, and before you know it, they become world championships. Maybe I'm grasping there a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
and we've talked to USA Cycling, and they have interest.
what do they say? I mean, I would.
Oh, they're
think-
all for it.
But what can they do? I mean, have they done
Well,
anything?
they have. I mean, there is some money involved. They have a foundation. They have grant programs.
Perfect.
In fact, USA Cycling, I believe, was one of the donors for the dome on the Colorado Springs track.
Oh, yeah.
So there is some money there. There's, of course, a network of people, coaches and athletes. you know, USA Cycling is just very interested. You know, they'll move their home wherever. Like right now,
Oh, really?
they're doing a lot of work in the LA track.
But would they move
The
their
LA track
headquarters
is
to
their
New
home
England?
track.
No, I mean,
It's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But the home track right now, that they do a lot of training at is LA.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, Ed, you had a chance to look at the financials of all these organizations,
Right,
and I know you can't reveal any of it, but what can you provide any sort of insight or observations about what you saw?
Well, what seems to be, what we found consistent with all of them, again, they've all been established with the exception of Detroit, which is fairly new.
Right.
The others have been around for at least 10 years. One I didn't mention was London, Ontario, which is,
Right.
they got very
That's the
very
hockey rink.
innovative with that. They found an old hockey rink,
Right.
and they rented it out, and yes, it's small, so they put the smallest track you've ever seen at 138 meters. I got a chance to ride it, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But
That's for the
they all get by. They have enough people to support what they're doing.
yeah.
The outdoor tracks, they continue to go, but the indoor tracks tend to thrive a little bit better because, again, they don't have more than just say 5 months of
Right. So
of good weather or possibly good weather, you know, barring any rain.
Yeah.
So, but if you have an indoor, the weather
it's not a factor.
problem goes away, and now you can have 12 months of activities in there.
How do they deal with the heating and the cooling? That's
We went through some numbers, and we found, yes, I mean, I've never run a large building myself. I'm not in that business, but I learned.
Sure.
And I'm finding out that it's, you put that into the whole budget, and you figure out how much revenue you're going to need, and we figure out how much we're going to get for, you know, possible memberships. You know, if it was, again, this is for an indoor facility, which is the big bucks. If you have an outdoor velodrome, which is, you know, easier to put up, okay, and you can still make it work, the cost is essentially acquiring the land and acquiring the track.
Right.
Okay, but the indoor, you have the added expense of heating and cooling, but you also have the added revenue of year-round revenue,
Right,
which
exactly.
is important. And then
Yeah,
if you add the fact that you would have an indoor place for people to walk or run, there's guaranteed income right there, and
Yeah.
it provides a terrific service to the community.
Yeah, right.
Because there are a lot more runners, I think, than
Yeah.
cyclists, but so everybody gets a chance to use it, and that really brings the balance very close to even. So
Right.
that's, which is good.
That's great. So you know, these meetings have provided you with some good information and
Right,
data.
right.
Well, what is next? I mean, what's on your agenda of things to do, Alan, for raising awareness and moving the project forward?
I'm pretty focused on the effort to find a parcel of land, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the 40 plus acres, and it also doesn't necessarily need to be a piece of property that we're going to be breaking ground and constructing a velodrome on within 24 months.
Right.
It needs to be a piece of property where we can carve out an oval onto the dirt, onto the grass, onto the pavement, and start racing our bikes, and get that grassroots movement and start cultivating a culture around track cycling. I mean, the world pursuit champion got into track cycling by racing on a grass velodrome in Kansas. So
There you go. Yeah. No. Well. I'm sure it's the grass will grow pretty quickly because there are a lot of people
Let's hope so.
around who are interested in it. What about for you, Ed? I mean, what's on your agenda?
Yeah, this is the approach. I think that it's a more viable way to do it. You start with, as Alan said, you start with just developing the culture of track racing.
Yeah.
You get it on people's minds to say, hey, we can have track racing, and then when you have it, they'll outgrow it and they'll say they want something better. So I believe that's the way
Right.
to
Start
go.
small,
Right.
manageable.
Right, and it also proves out the whole model of that, you can get track racing actually going and make it mainstream.
Yeah. And are you planning any events or fundraisers or things to bring people in?
Well, we were, actually, it's part of the two initiatives, the social media platforms, which we want to grow and expand and really get people focused on, and also the fundraising. So that, as I said earlier, the fundraising is going to, be part of this year's growth, and we have talked about. In fact, on the way up here, we had a few hours to sit in the car. So we talked about running a couple of events this year. So yes, we do hope to do events.
Yeah, I mean, what could you do? I mean, thinking out loud here, go to, isn't there the world champion? Don't they have the national track competition? USA Cycling's got to have their nationals in LA. Could you set up a booth? And that's one thing, but how about just a party? Is there
Yeah.
I like that
like
idea.
a big one?
Yeah. And we don't have to go to LA for that.
Yeah, exactly. And forget it. That was a bad idea.
There are a couple different fundraising ideas. I've been managing a nonprofit for the last 10 years,
Okay.
and
Right.
we organize running races to raise money
Right.
to support our cause. There's a possibility that maybe we'll get hooked up with a cycling club and assist with organizing a bicycle race. We can do indoor roller races. We can print T-shirts or hats, sell
Right.
those. Apart from just the obvious of like, hey, this is the plan.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
order to execute on this plan, we need to raise X million dollars.
Yeah.
Write us a check, please.
Yeah, yeah. Or there must be something on Zwift too, doesn't Zwift have a track? Maybe you can have have the New England Track Cycling Championship on Zwift. Again, you know, not. I'm thinking out loud. Not all the great ideas come.
Yeah, no.
But I think the logo looks great. Can you explain a little bit about the design story that went into it?
Well, I would hope that the similarities to a velodrome are obvious.
Yep,
That was
yep.
the objective there, and obviously the U.S. flag as well.
Yeah, no, well,
We worked with
there you go.
several designers. We did this online through a contest where
Yeah,
literally
great.
dozens of designers gave us ideas.
Yeah.
We ultimately narrowed it down to 4 different designs and reached out to friends and family amongst, as well as the board members ourselves, polished it, and this is where we ended up. And the goal with this logo is to show a velodrome, show the U.S. flag,
Right.
show New England,
England, yep.
and show some motion.
Yeah,
With the italicized font, with the cutoff there, it's clean. I love it.
No, it works. And any significance to the colors or the blue?
U.S.
and-
flag.
Blue and red.
Yeah, I mean, it's, when we wrote the design brief for the designers, I said, look, you guys have artistic creativity to
Yeah,
go with whatever
You go with
colors
it.
you
Yeah,
want.
exactly.
By the way, in case you're interested, colors typically associated with New England are red, white, and blue.
There you go.
But go crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably 90% of the designs that came in were red, white, and blue. So even if we didn't like those colors,
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
kind of like, well,
Now they're all Patriots fans too, probably.
yeah.
But one last question: how do volunteers get involved, and what can viewers of the show and the network in New England do to get involved and keep the momentum going?
Like our Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
And that's
Pay
a good way to
attention.
stay in touch
Yep.
with us.
Yeah.
Because you can also drop us a note on our Facebook page.
Okay.
People have done that, and we've responded to them. Usually we do it within a day. So they can like our page. They certainly can make a donation. Volunteers are always welcome, and now that we're kind of ramping up our efforts because we have more momentum with new board members, we're going to need more help doing the initiatives that we are doing, which is, the social media, the fundraising events. We'd love to go to bike races and have a presence, but we can't, 5 of us can't be at every bike race all spring.
Yeah.
So we definitely would love some volunteers. Whatever your skill might be, if you're creative, maybe we can have you help with social media. So yeah, you can like us on Facebook, make a donation, volunteer with the organization, and
Architects.
what's that?
If there are any architects watching,
Oh, yeah,
Architects,
yeah,
love to speak with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest expenses that the organization is going to incur before we actually break ground.
Yeah, no,
So-
but I'm certain that there's an architect watching, and if not, we'll make sure that message gets out there. All right, you guys. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks for
Thank
having us, Freddie.
you.
Good to be here.
Exciting stuff. I love to and it's going to happen. I can
It is
feel
going to
It
happen.
will happen.
All right, everybody. That was Pam Fernandez, Ed Cross, and Alan Ferry, the board, or part of the board of the New England Velodrome and Sports Complex. If you want to find out more about that organization, you can find them on Facebook. Reach out to them, ask them questions, find out how you can get involved. It's great, exciting stuff. That's all we got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.
All Things Bike is brought to you by Fitworks, rider-first bike fitting, rider-matched bike sales. Locations in Peabody, Massachusetts, Waitsfield, Vermont, and Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. And Frame and Wheel, eBay selling services for cyclists, bike shops, and bicycle companies. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.